On March 23rd, container ship MV Ever Given ran aground and blocked the Suez Canal. Within a few days of the refloating on March 29th, the backlog of waiting ship had been cleared. Traffic is now back to normal, and the authorities in charge can heave a sigh of relief. During the week for it to be dislodged and refloated, the attention of the world was focused on the Suez. Suez Canal is at the heart of global trade, and its importance was highlighted by the recent incident. This 193-kilometer canal connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea and provides the shortest sea link between Asia and Europe. Suez Canal has had a long history of playing a key role in growth of global trade. Several disputes and even wars have been fought over control of this canal. Suez played a key role in growth and strengthening of British colonialism in Asia, especially India. It can even be said that had it not been for Suez, British control over India and its trade would not have succeeded. It was regarded as the jugular vein of the empire and was the shortest route from Britain to the east. Let's understand the history of canal itself. Suez was not the first canal to be built between Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Senusret III, Pharaoh of Egypt, initiated the first man-made effort of connecting the two seas through a network of canals through River Nile in 1874 BC, almost 3,700 years before Suez Canal was opened for trade. These canals are collectively called as Canals of Pharaoh, and they connected Nile to Red Sea through a system that ended in Bitter Lakes and finally to Red Sea itself. The construction of this system of canals took centuries, and while conceptualized by pharaohs, a lot of the construction passed on to the successive empires, notably the Persian Achaemenids to the Ptolemy Roman Empire. Economic sense of connecting the two seas was well understood even back then. An idea of having a direct connection between the two seas remained an interesting concept, though technologically difficult. Everyone understood the importance of direct short route from Europe to Asia. But things took an urgent turn when in 1488, Portuguese explorer Bartholomew Dias found the route to India through Cape of Good Hope. His initial exploration allowed another Portuguese explorer, Vasco da Gama, to be the first European to ever set foot on India by sea route. This changed the global trade like never before. This allowed European countries direct access to profitable Asian markets, especially India. This was also the time when the idea of colonialism was taking shape. Britain, Spain, France, the Dutch, and Portugal were all in the race to dominate the trade with India and rest of Asia using this route. European countries fought among themselves, both in Europe and notably in India, for control of these trade routes. With countries vying to dominate sea trade, the need for a shorter route was felt more than ever before. French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, after conquering Egypt in 1798, commissioned extensive studies of ancient waterways to build a direct canal system connecting the two seas. However, French engineers mistakenly thought that the water levels of two seas are at different elevation and thus would need a system of locks, which could potentially damage or flood the Nile basin, and it was considered too risky and was shelved. If France would have built the canal, French could have used this route to usher in forces through Suez in advance of British reaction, and this could have changed the history forever. Britain in 1800s was expanding its business interests in India through British East India Company. British East India Company became the all-powerful trading company that was responsible for all trade and business happening in India. This company was becoming increasingly influential and also registered key wins against the French and Dutch forces to gain literal monopoly over trade with India. The British East India Company began in India, but was now expanding to other parts of Asia and Egypt. This growth was giving numerous opportunities for young enterprising individuals like Robert Clive, who went to India as a troublesome hooligan and returned back as Major General and first British Governor of Bengal Presidency, and also a newly made millionaire. Similarly, French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps sold the idea of a shortcut to India, and Suez Canal opened to trade on November 17, 1869. De Lesseps was the principal developer of Suez Canal. He travelled across Europe and Great Britain, tirelessly marketed his Suez Canal scheme, selling the idea of the canal as a means of conveyance and an economic conduit, and sold shares for the Universal Suez Maritime Canal Company to British and European shipping magnates and captains of trade. Britain, alarmed by sudden interest in Suez Canal and intending to prevent other countries from access to its most profitable territory, was quick to act. In 1875, British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli borrowed £4 million from Rothschild Bank to purchase 44% share in the Suez Company. And for many decades since its opening, about 3/4 of Suez traffic was British. Opening of the Suez Canal had a direct impact on trade with India, and the British Empire used it to increase trade and also bolster its military presence in the region to prevent other nations from taking advantage of this highly profitable trade. With firm control over Suez, British now started having much stronger trade with its most profitable colony, India. Indian economy now started to increasingly depend on how Britain wanted it to grow. For Britain, India was a source of highly valuable raw material. The process was simple. Take raw material such as cotton out of India and send the processed goods back to India. The flooding of market with British-made goods ensured local manufacturers had no chance on competing with this unfavorable trade. British forces opened the large Indian market to British goods, which could be sold in India without any tariffs or duties, compared to local Indian producers who were heavily taxed. This had a catastrophic effect on Indian economy. According to Angus Madison report, in 1820, India's GDP was 16% of the world's total. By 1870, it had fallen to 12%, and by 1947, had fallen even further to just 4%. At the same time, United Kingdom's share of the world economy rose from 2.9% in 1700s up to 9% in 1870. But this was just the beginning. There was another development that accelerated the pace. In 1853, first passenger train was inaugurated between Bombay and Thane, covering a distance of 34 kilometers. By 1880, nearly 10 years after opening of Suez Canal, this route mileage increased to 25,000 kilometers. This transformed the inland transportation like India had never seen before. People and goods could now be transported from their source to shipping ports much faster. During the First World War, railway networks were used to transport troops and grains to the ports of Bombay and Karachi, en route to Britain, Mesopotamia, and East Africa through Suez Canal. During both World War I and II, shipment of equipment and parts from Britain were curtailed. Railway workshops in India were converted to making artillery and locomotives and even cars. They were now transported back to Middle East and other places much quicker over Suez. British investments in Suez Canal were now paying off handsomely. This conversion of workshops and faster transportation over Suez, while aiding the Britain in both the wars, had a disastrous effect on Indian economy, and post-Second World War, Indian economy and Indian railways were both crippled. In the 1870s, British observers noted that the railways had helped destroy once vibrant Indian handloom industry. Cotton produce was now exclusively used for export to European markets. They also noted that Suez Canal was central to the smooth functioning of this exploitative arrangement. With Suez Canal and railway infrastructure in place, British could now institutionalize an unequal pattern of trade, whereby the fruits of Indian labor, agriculture commodities, and its natural resources were easily appropriated at a fraction of their value and exported to Europe. Suez Canal was witness to a significant transfer of capital from India to England, with India serving as both a significant supplier of raw goods to British manufacturers and a large captive market for British manufactured goods. Some estimates suggest that from 1870 to 1900s, more than £900 million were transferred from India to Britain. Trade through Suez aided in systematic deindustrialization of Indian economy. As the British cotton industry underwent a technological revolution during the late 18th to early 19th century, the Indian industry stagnated and was deindustrialized to aid British imports to India. From being largely urbanized economy and having buoyant exports of cotton textiles, Indian economy went through centuries of deindustrialization to being totally dependent, with literally no industry or factory to name. This led to Britain replacing India as the world's largest textile manufacturer in the 19th century. While Suez saw the rise of colonization by European powers, it also played a direct role in ending it in no uncertain terms. In 1956, Suez Crisis resulted in France and Britain invading Egypt over control of Suez. The newly formed United Nations threatened Britain with sanctions. United States, led by Eisenhower, put pressure on IMF to deny Britain any financial assistance. With few options, British Prime Minister Anthony Eden accepted a unilateral ceasefire with Egypt and granting Egypt complete control over Suez. This outcome signaled the end of British Empire and also led to loss of control over Suez, something that had helped propel a lot of its growth. This event also marked the time that Britain lost its role as world's principal power as US and Russia took over. Suez today is again in the center of world trade. According to World Economic Forum, roughly 30% of world's shipping container volume transits through this canal. 12% of total global trade of all goods also passes through this canal. It is also witness to a new trade wind blowing across the world. It is China that is the leading importer and exporter in the world, and as the recent mishap shows, its trade also depends on Suez Canal. Only time will tell how this next chapter of Suez Canal will be written and how it will shape the global trade and global politics.